Well, good afternoon. This is Scotty Sykes with Sykes & Company. Glad to have you on today for another Master the Margin webinar series here. And today we're going to be actually hosting Sykes & Company. Today we've got my brother Chris here, Chris Sykes, who is our IT director here at Sykes & Company. He definitely keeps us moving and keeps us protected in terms of security and online and so on and so forth, way outside my area of expertise. But as we all know, security is a huge factor in today's world, and it continues to grow in importance every single day. So we figured, why not have a webinar on this important topic and have Chris featured. So here we are. Again, thanks for being here today and for watching our webinar series this year. It has been a busy one, so we hope you've enjoyed those. Now, with that, Chris, I'm going to let you take it off from here.
All right, thank you, Scotty, and thank you for allowing me to come on today and talk a little bit about security. Going to take it from the approach, going to take it more from the general security approach when it comes to ransomware. As most people have probably heard, ransomware is probably the most well-known malware, if you will, out there. At least it's the one that gets the most attention in the news. You saw it with the pipeline recently, and other major companies that get ransomware. It happens pretty much every day. So let's get started on the first slide, Scotty, and
Yep.
We'll just dive right into what is ransomware.
Yep, and real quick, let's just go over the disclaimer. Of course, this is informational purposes only. Speak with your advisors and technical staff on what is best for you and your organization. All right, Chris, what is ransomware here?
Well, ransomware, this is according to two government websites, FBI and the IC3. And basically, it's a type of malicious software or malware that prevents you from accessing your computer files, systems, or networks and demands you pay a ransom for their return. The attacks can cause costly disruptions to operations and the loss of critical information and data. And then further, if the ransom is not paid, the victim's data remains unavailable, and cyber criminals may pressure the victims to pay the ransom by threatening to destroy the victim's data or to release it to the public. That release it to the public piece right there at the end is one of the newer things that the attackers are starting to do. They are not encrypting some of the data and stealing it and putting it in a public arena, which is almost worse than encrypting the data itself. So especially for government data. And so that's some pretty serious things that these attackers are doing to extort money from these businesses.
And this is what happened to the pipeline this past summer. Is that right? That was a ransomware situation?
Yeah, that was a ransomware situation. I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe it came from an email. One of their employees opened an email and it came through that way, if I'm not mistaken. And there was quite a bit of ransom demanded from that. It happens, it's very popular with municipalities like cities, towns and cities. A lot of government agencies, they target schools, hospitals, it's everywhere. And the way you have to look at it now, Scotty, is it's the old adage, if it's not if, it's when. And so you basically need to treat it as, okay, I'm going to get attacked. What can I do? What's in my power to do as much as I can do to prepare for it if it does happen. And so you want to be as prepared as possible because if it happens, I think the average downtime from a ransomware attack, if I remember reading, was 10 days of business downtime, not being able to access your files. So keep that in mind, especially in your pharmacy when you're thinking, what is the maximum amount of time that you can be down without a significant loss to your business, which I'm sure it's not very long. 10 days is just out there. That's a massive, massive outage for any pharmacy that we work with, I'm sure. So very, very important things to take a look here. And so what we're going to do is in the next few slides, we're going to look into this a little deeper. So the next slide here is, how does an infection take place? Many different ways. Probably one of the more popular ways is social engineering. Social engineering is a broad term for an email, for example, that has something that tries to lure you in. Maybe it's a big discount for something, or maybe it appeals to your emotions, is what social engineering is. And so that is a lot of how ransomware kind of creeps in. Email phishing campaigns, we've all heard of that. Remote desktop protocol, which is a very popular one now due to the remote workforce that we have in our environment today. A lot of people are using RDP to remote into their computers, and that's can be very, very vulnerable, especially if you have RDP open on your firewall. Something to remember there. Software vulnerabilities. Is your software updated? The next one, software and operating systems. Are you doing your Windows updates on all your computers? Any software application you run, is it updated? Are you sure that it is, or you're not sure? Those are the things that you need to know for sure if those things are getting updated on at least a weekly basis. Another infection vector is compromised websites. I'm sure some of you out there may have seen, you do a Google search and you pull up a website and you start having stuff flashing on the screen and it says, alert, you're infected. That's a compromised website, and sometimes ransomware can creep in by just browsing to a particular website. So very, very important thing to watch for, especially when you're doing searches in Google or any other search engine. Malvertising, which is basically an ad on a website that's infected, a pop-up ad sometimes, or maybe an ad that is built into the side of the browser, on the left or right side column of a website, could possibly have a ransomware attack through just visiting a website with a bad ad. A download. Any download, obviously, you can download a virus if it's a bad link, a bad URL that you're clicking on. It can come through a download. Messaging platforms, any messaging platforms like Facebook Messenger. There could be bad URLs in Facebook Messenger or any other messaging platform you can get infected through in an exploit kit. Basically, an exploit kit is an automated program that looks for vulnerabilities in your system and tries to exploit them. Unpatched systems, unpatched software, those sorts of things. So just an array of ways to get ransomware, for sure.
And Chris, does it matter if you're mobile? If something happens here and you're working mobile, could that impact the organization as a whole? If something were to happen from a mobile standpoint, because I know a lot of us are on phones and laptops and things like that.
Yeah, especially if you're mobile and working from home, whether you're working through a VPN back to your office, whether you're using a service like LogMeIn to access your PC at the office. Yes, if you get ransomware at home, ransomware can can transfer through a VPN into a corporate network. And so home networks are just as important to secure as is the office network. And that's the issue, a lot of IT managers and IT, information officers are facing now is this remote workforce. These home networks are nowhere as secure as the corporate networks. And so it is an ongoing effort to try and secure those remote computers and remote networks because they are more vulnerable. And things can pass through networks, through VPNs and such. So yeah, good question.
Let's pull up a poll here and see if anybody on here has actually been attacked from ransomware in the past. I'll drop a poll question in here.
All right.
So has your organization suffered from a ransomware attack? And we've got most say no, but there's a couple out there that are saying yes. And then a few are saying they don't know.
Okay.
So, but most 73 are saying no, but we still have a few out there that are yes and don't know. So,
Okay. Yeah. Those that say yes, it's interesting. I'd love to hear stories, on how they overcame it. It kind of comes down to, you hear you can pay the ransom, get a decryption key for your data and get your data back. The FBI says that you have about a 50-50 chance of getting your data back, even if you pay the ransom. Most suggestions out there suggest not to pay the ransom because it just furthers the attacker's efforts in the future for other attacks. And so lots to think about there when it comes to actually getting the ransomware on your network. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we go through some best practices.
there we go. All right, Chris, best practices. Can you see the screen?
No, if you could display that for me.
All right.
Got it. All right. So best practices. Oh, just went away. There it goes. All right, came back. Backups are probably one of your most beneficial things to have if you are attacked by ransomware. An on-site backup, you need an off-site backup, and even offline backups as well. And so if your information is encrypted and you do have ransomware, you can restore from a backup and be back up and running fairly quickly. If you're familiar with your restore processes, you regularly test your backups and you know they do work, and that your backups are encrypted themselves. That's important as well. So I urge you, everyone out there, please be sure you have full backups of your most important data. Test those backups on a regular schedule, whether it's once a day, once a week, or at least at a minimum once a month. Test those backups. Be sure you can restore from them, because that's going to be one of your quickest ways to recovery if you do get ransomware, is being able to restore from those backups. So you want multiple backups. You want them preferably backups on site, something quickly accessible, something off site where you could download it from the internet if you needed to, and even offline, which means you have backups maybe sitting on hard drives that are disconnected, not on the internet, that can be pulled in if needed. So definitely check on your backups. Another best practice is security awareness training. This is probably one of the more popular layers of defense. And, we're looking at this as kind of a layered approach. I should have mentioned this already. Security you have to look at it as a layered approach. And you may have heard this before, but it's so important to have multiple layers, because no matter how many layers you have, you can still have a problem. You can still get attacked, but the more layers you have, the more protection you have, and the longer it may take to get an attack or get attacked, and it may buy you some more time, the more layers you have. So looking at the second bullet here, security awareness, I would put in the top 3 most important layers that you can have. If not top 1, it could be number 1 for us. We here at Sykes & Company use security awareness training for everyone. From the first day you're hired, and then on an ongoing basis, we are constantly watching videos for updated phishing attack awareness. We go through phishing simulation, where our folks get fake emails, and then I get a report to see who's clicked on what. There's just a various different ways of having training for your staff as far as security goes. Many options out there, many vendors. It's definitely something to look into, so staff are familiar with what to click on and what not to click on, especially when it comes to emails.
I know that's very helpful for me because we get those test emails all the time, and you don't know it's a test, but you do learn to really pick those out.
Yeah, yeah, and it works well if you're consistent with it. And we do it on a monthly basis, and definitely cannot highly recommend it enough. Security awareness training. There's just to throw a few vendors up.
Yeah. You have any vendors, Chris?
Yeah, the one we use is Knowbe4. It's KNOWBE in the number 4, I believe. Knowbe4. You can search it and it'll pull it right up. Very pleased with their service, and they do a great job. And so that brings me to the third bullet: be careful with email. I tell you, email is the weak point for most organizations, and I think it's 90+% ransomware comes through email, whether it's a URL in an email or an attachment in an email. Email is the weakest link, and so don't trust email. If you get an email that you're not sure about, what I tell our folks here is if you're not sure, forward it to me. I'll take a look. But in the end, if the person's not sure, call the sender. Yes, it takes a little extra time, but if you call the sender and say, hey, did you really send this to me, or did you mean to send this to me, and verify, because it may take you a few minutes to do that, but it could save you a lot of money also in the long run. So please be careful with email. Be sure you have email filtering turned on, some sort of email filtering in your business, and just pay special attention to that. Consistent application and patching. You kind of alluded to this earlier. Any major application you use on your network, in your business, for your pharmacy, please patch it. If there's a patch that's being pushed out, I wouldn't wait long to patch it. There was a time where I was a little hesitant to patch things so quick, because the patches sometimes were worse than what could possibly happen otherwise. But in today's world, it's just safest to get things patched as quickly as possible, because these vulnerabilities are popping up everywhere, and they're being exploited very quickly. And so please patch your systems. Have a method and a system for patching Windows and all your applications, and Macs if you run Macs. Multi-factor authentication needs to be on every login you have, without a doubt. You should not be logging into any banks, to any sort of online account without multi-factor authentication. Almost every online account has it. I don't know that there is any that won't have it these days. So please, if you don't have multi-factor enabled for your important accounts, please get that turned on, because that second factor, which is like your phone or an app on your phone like Google Authenticator, that second factor can be make or break from an attack on your account. So please pay special attention to that as well. Secure remote access. So if you allow VPN access into your pharmacy, to your business, and you're using remote desktop through that, or you're using a connection like LogMeIn, be sure that you know who's using it, the access they have when they're using it, and just be able to manage those remote connections. Just know what's going on there, because with everyone working remotely now, very important that you are aware of who's using remote access, what they have access to, and how they're accessing it. Just have some sort of management over that. Last bullet point here is multi-layered approach. Like I mentioned earlier, multi-layer is definitely the best way to go. At a minimum, as far as like a physical layer, something hardware on your network, you need a firewall. You definitely need a firewall, and even better if it has subscription services enabled on it, which is an extra fee. But most of today's firewalls, next generation firewalls, have a subscription service on them. They have antivirus. They have intrusion prevention systems, anti-spyware built into the firewall that scans incoming and outgoing traffic automatically without you having to do anything. You just enable it, you turn it on, and it runs. And it's a good layer of protection that will catch most things. So if you don't have a firewall, get a firewall and be sure that it has subscription services built into it. A couple examples would be a SonicWall, WatchGuard, Fortinet. Those are just a few in the industry now that are very popular. So definitely look into that if you do not have a firewall in your business.
Chris, how does not sure you know this answer or not, but how does HIPAA play into all this? Because HIPAA requirements are quite strict with pharmacies, and I'm sure there's a lot of requirements from that standpoint, from a security perspective.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I don't know that I know for sure all the HIPAA standards and policies for a pharmacy as far as what they are required to have to protect the data. I will say that if you work with an IT provider or you have somebody in-house that does your IT or whatever the case is, that would be a good task for that person to look into. Are you doing the minimum, at least according to HIPAA, to protect your client, your patient data, because you don't want to be in violation of that. I'm sure the HIPAA standards are probably pretty high, and I'm sure a lot of the things that I'm hitting on today will probably satisfy a lot of their requirements. So definitely look into what those requirements are for your pharmacy if you haven't already.
So we just dropped a question: who manages your IT security for your pharmacy? We've got 40% have someone in-house, 40% a third party, 20% or 18% the owner, essentially.
Okay.
So about 20% out there right now is the owner or PIC.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll say, I'll start with like third party. If you use a third party IT provider, just ask them the question. Are we satisfying the HIPAA requirements as far as network and data security in this pharmacy? It's a fair question. I would think that if the IT provider is willing to support you and to do your IT, that they have an idea of what those requirements are and that they are adhering to them. So it's just a fair question, I think, to ask them. If they give you suggestions that, maybe you're lacking here or lacking there, I would maybe follow up on those and be sure you have what it takes to meet those standards. Because you just cannot have enough layers in your business for protection.
What about the in-house professionals or the owners? Is there anything in particular they should be aware of, and they manage their organizations?
Yeah, what I would say to that is seek help if you're not sure. Don't be afraid to reach out to a third-party resource for help, even if it's a one-time call. Hey, I know we don't have a firewall here. Can you please just help us set one up? Seek help if you need it. And if you don't need outside help, just be sure that you're doing everything you can within your power inside that pharmacy to protect that data. One thing that comes to mind is the data on your network in your pharmacy. Is it encrypted at rest? So while it's sitting on your servers or on your PCs, is that data sitting there encrypted? So if there was a breach and somebody gained access to that server, would they just find a bunch of encrypted data, or would they find it wide open, easy to obtain, to read? So something to consider there on on that front. I would think that you would want your data be encrypted. That way, if there is a breach, at least that they can't read the data. So a lot of things to think about in-house and for third-party providers. So next here, I got another slide continuing on the best practices. We haven't talked about antiviruses. What's out these days is called next-gen antivirus, if you will. The best antiviruses that are out there today, none of them are the be-all, end-all, going to protect you 100%. They all have their flaws. Antivirus will not protect you 100%, but again, it's another layer in the stack. And you want to try and use a next-gen antivirus that is AI-based. EDR is endpoint detection and response. A lot of these newer ones have detection and response built into them for remediation. Behavioral based, so they look for behavior changes on your computer. So these are not traditional definition-based antiviruses that you may be used to from the past. Those still exist, but they're not as effective as these newer type of antivirus products. A few that come to mind are CrowdStrike, Cylance, SentinelOne, just to name a few. Carbon Black, I believe. There's many out there now. If you don't have one of these newer antiviruses, definitely look into it. Have your in-house person or your IT provider just ask the question: what type of antivirus do we have? Do we have a traditional definition-based antivirus or a next-gen antivirus? Just ask the question. If you have an older type of traditional system, find out what it would take to upgrade to a newer one. You will have better protection without a doubt. Next bullet point is limit privileged accounts. So big question: who has admin access on your network? Do you know how many admin user accounts there are? Are you keeping up with who's using those admin accounts? Do the passwords expire on a regular basis for those accounts? Definitely something to look into. Be sure you are able to track and to manage your user accounts, and limit. You really only need one person that has an admin account, and they don't need to use that admin account for their daily work. It just needs to be stashed to the side and used when only you need to make an admin change or modify something. You should never be logging into your system as admin, because if you log into your system as admin on a daily basis and you get attacked, then that person that just attacked your computer and is in your system has admin access to your network. So at least if you're logging in as a regular standard user and they attack your computer, they can't go but so far because you're not an admin. So limit those privileged accounts. Password hygiene. You probably get tired of hearing about passwords, but it's something so easy to do and keep up with if you do it correctly. What we do here is I'll skip to the next bullet, which says password manager. We use a company called LastPass. It's an online password manager that keeps all of our passwords encrypted in the cloud, and it allows us to have complex passwords that are different for every website we access. You don't want to share the same password among multiple sites. That's a bad idea. You want them to be long, at least 16 characters, unique, complex. You can even do a sentence. I tell a lot of people, make a phrase. If you can't come up with anything, just type a sentence that you can remember. Further, LastPass has a password generator built in. So you can actually have LastPass generate this crazy long password that doesn't make any sense, and it'll save it for you in the browser. And so you don't have to remember it. Please pay attention to your passwords, use complex passwords, change them, at least every 60 days, if not sooner. Just keep up, just don't use them across one password across multiple websites. Not a good idea.
I love that LastPass.
Yeah, it's very helpful. There's a couple
Great.
more out there.
Even on your phone too, works great.
Yeah. Yeah, they have a mobile app. Another company, another vendor is called OnePass, if I'm not mistaken. There's many out there. If you just do a search for password managers, you'll see quite a few come up, and they're very inexpensive. And once you use it, it's like going from one monitor to two monitors. You'll wonder how you ever worked with one monitor when you start using two. When you start using a password manager, you'll wonder how you ever worked without it. Because it automatically fills your passwords in on your browser. You never have to remember anything. Highly recommend it. What's next here? Network equipment updates. This is a lesser known bullet point, I would say. A lot of people overlook this. And what this means is your firewall, for example, or some network switches, your routers at home that you're using to remote in with. Are those devices updated? Because they issue firmware updates for those devices. And I tell you, that is a big attack vector for unsecured, unupdated network devices, especially internet-facing devices like routers. So check with your provider, check with your in-house person, and make sure that those devices are getting updated. You need to at least check, I'd say, every 6 months or so for those type of devices, and make sure that they have the latest updates. I know that a lot of bad actors out there are hijacking not updated routers facing the internet and then leveraging that to attack a whole network. So next bullet point, plan. Incident response plans, disaster recovery plans. You know, plan as you would for a natural disaster. You know, this is probably one of the harder bullet points to take care of because it involves a lot of thought process. It involves more than one person. It involves several meetings with your company, with your staff. Know what to do if you do get attacked. So, for example, if you get ransomware, you open up a bad email, your network's encrypted, you can't access anything, everything's down. You want to know what to do next without panicking. You want to be able to start the process of remediation in a calm manner. You know what your steps are, and you can go through them.
Chris, we just launched the poll. Do you have a plan in place if attacked? And we're getting about 60+% saying no, they do not. 15% not sure. So only about 20% or so, give or take, do.
Okay. Yeah, it's a tougher one, I tell you. You know, and I'm not necessarily telling everyone to go write a book on how to respond to an incident, but at a minimum, at least come up with a standard procedure of who needs to be notified when there's a problem within the company, who needs to be notified outside the company, like FBI, when to contact the FBI, or an outside security firm to come help you rectify the situation. You know, when to file for cyber insurance claim. You know, all the above. Just need to have the big areas covered. Know what you would do in the middle of a problem, so that you can handle it in a calm manner. Because when you're not calm and you're in the heat of the moment, you're not going to be thinking as well as you would be if you had a plan. So try to plan at least something, just like you would for a natural disaster. If you live on the East Coast, for example, and you're in a hurricane alley, you know, I'm sure you have some sort of protocol for when a hurricane's coming. You know, it's the same type of plan in a sense, same principle. Let's see, next, begin to build cybersecurity into the culture of your pharmacy. Cybersecurity should be viewed in every business, but especially in the pharmacy, not as do we have to have it? Do we have to have this or have to have that? It's more of a question of why don't we have enough of it? You know, what can we do to get to incorporate more of it in our business? It needs to be you need to really build it into the culture of your practice, especially the user awareness training, the privileged accesses. Just be sure that you're building it in, and it's not just I gotta have it over here on the side. Really try to incorporate it and take it seriously, because you see the news almost every week. There's a problem, and they're not just targeting big oil companies, big Fortune 1000 companies. They're attacking small, medium businesses as well, just as much.
They
there's
just
a
don't
new,
get the attention.
Yeah. There's also what's in the ransomware world, there's what's called ransomware as a service now. And so it is easier than ever for a malicious actor to try and infect your network with ransomware, because there are companies out there, underground companies, selling ransomware as a service to other bad people. Those bad people are buying the ransomware as a service. It kind of comes in a package that they can deliver to networks and try to infect networks and extort money. So they're making it easier than ever for ransomware to take place. And it really is just a matter if. You really have to look at it as, when, not if. And so just have that mindset moving forward in your business. So this was a poll taken, this came from the SpyCloud Ransomware Defense Report. This was a poll among CIOs, IT managers, upper level IT folks in businesses on what the riskiest points of entry for ransomware are. And as you can see, this was on a scale of 1 to 5. They're ranking it from 1 to 5, and you can see phishing emails were the highest rated by a long shot. They pretty much clear everybody, all the other ones out beneath it. So it kind of lends the fact that you need to protect your email. Even if you have to block attachments. I even heard of companies now blocking attachments. They will not accept attachments in email anymore. So how serious you want to take it, you can take it to the extreme if you want to. But please have some email protection. If you're not sure if you have email protection, ask your provider, ask your in-house person, and make sure that you have some sort of email filtering and protection on that. And then you can see the other ones beneath it, exposed credentials, unmanaged devices. That's a good one. Are the devices that your remote workers using, are they unmanaged? Are they home personal computers that they're using to access your network? They don't need to be, if so, because home computers probably don't have antiviruses on them. They're not updated. Very, very weak link right there. So if you are allowing your employees to work from home, even just a little bit, be sure that you're giving them a business approved PC to work from that is managed.
Good stuff.
Yeah. All right, so first response actions. What happens if you get ransomware when this webinar is over? What do I do? First thing you should do is contact your IT provider immediately. Really, if you had a response plan, you would start that plan. But some of the more practical things that we can talk about are contact your IT provider immediately, let somebody know so you can start to get help. Unplug your computer, because ransomware spreads laterally. If you have MAP drives on your PC to a server, it's going to go right through your computer, straight to the server, and it's not going to stop. So if you unplug your PC network cable, or just shut your computer down, pull the plug out if you have to, get that thing off the network so it cannot spread. If you see ransom pop-ups, if you get to the point where you're seeing a pop-up come up to pay a ransom, don't pay the ransom. Seek help first. Get some guidance. Do not pay the ransom right away. Restore from your backups. There's other things that can be done, many things that can be done before you even need to think about paying a ransom, which is not recommended anyway by the FBI. Obviously, implement your incident response plan and contact the FBI. believe towards the end of the slide deck here, there are some links. Maybe you can screenshot it. But the FBI has a dedicated, there's several dedicated government websites to ransomware that you can seek information from. So how do you recover from ransomware? Well, a couple of the tools that you can use if and when it does happen is roll back the device. Some of the newer next-gen antiviruses that I've mentioned have a rollback feature where you can actually roll back the computer to how it was yesterday, therefore reversing the ransomware infection. There is that out there. Restore from backup, we've mentioned. There are decryption tools in the public space that you can download to decrypt files without paying the ransom for the decryption key. There are tools out there. It would take probably an IT provider to seek those out, but there are out there. Do nothing. You can just rebuild the affected system. You can just wipe the system if it has ransomware. You can just reinstall Windows and format the hard drive and go that route. That gets rid of it. Obviously, an option is to negotiate and pay the ransom. That's an option. And then activate your recovery plan again. So just a few things that are out there that you can do. So some of the key findings that we see and that I've read here, this is again from the Spy Cloud Defense Report. More organizations than not have been infected with ransomware at this point. That's a pretty staggering sentence there. More organizations than not have been infected. Pretty crazy. Phishing emails and compromised credentials are the riskiest entry points. Again, protect your email, protect your credentials. Use a password manager. I mean, two relatively easy things to implement. People are your greatest barrier to effective ransomware defense. You've heard the human error. The human layer is your weakest point, and that's why I say that user awareness training is so important, very important. So try to educate, try to provide learning for your staff on how to recognize a bad email, just the simple things. You know, what to look for, what are the clues in emails that you can look for, like name spelled wrong, or the from email doesn't look right, those sorts of things. And ransomware is here to stay. It's not going to just kind of dwindle away. It only gets worse and worse every year. I believe year over year, I think from 2020 to 2021, this time, the past year, it has increased 150%. And it just keeps getting worse. So it's not going anywhere. And unfortunately, the majority of businesses lack the most basic forms of prevention, and those would be a firewall, updated antivirus, updated Microsoft Windows computers, email filtering, just the basics. You need those things. So if you're not using those things in your pharmacy, please look into at least those basics as soon as you can.
Yeah, it seems like every year you're talking about how bad it is, and then the next year it's worse. It is definitely not going away, and it's getting worse. That's for sure.
Yeah, as you see here, here's a headline from SonicWall. Here, you know, ransomware breaks another record. As the year of ransomware roars, SonicWall observes third quarter with another unprecedented record-breaking surge in attacks. This was from back in July, but it gives you an idea of what we're saying here. It's just doubling, tripling, exponentially with ransomware. I mean, ransomware is the type of thing that'll keep you up at night. At least for an IT director like myself, it's the thing where you don't want to wake up to it. And I know you out there listening in don't want to go through this either. It can just be tremendously hard to overcome. And this was something I pulled from a Pharmacy Times website. Basically, just the article was entitled, "Pharmacy is just as risk of ransomware attacks as other healthcare providers." So, you know, you hear a lot of hospitals in the news getting ransomware. In this article, I have the link down there provided, but pharmacies are just as at risk as hospitals are. And you would think hospitals have great, very secure networks, and I'm sure most of them do, but they're just as vulnerable as the next business down the street. So take it seriously. Build that culture of cybersecurity into your business. A couple healthcare stats that I pulled up here. This is from pharmacypracticenews.com. 92 individual ransomware attacks on healthcare organizations, a 60% increase from 2019. More than 600 separate hospital, clinics, and organizations potentially affected. 18 million individual patients record affected, 470 increase from 2019. This is kind of going back to 2020 stats, but still you get the point. Average ransom demand in 2020, almost 170,000. Total ransomware demands at 15 million. And the overall cost of attacks at 20 billion. This is just healthcare. So obviously you see the big issue here with ransomware in healthcare. So very good website links here. I would definitely bookmark these when you can, maybe take a screenshot, and I'm sure the slides will be available as well, if I'm not mistaken. So I think probably one of the better ones is that first one, that CISA.gov. It's very easy to read, very easy to follow. It's got a lot of practical tips on there. Definitely look into these links and just familiarize yourself with them. Definitely will help you understand a little more of what's going on with ransomware, and they keep them updated continually.
All right, so if there's any questions, go ahead and feel free to drop those in the box. We'll see if Chris can answer those on the fly here. But obviously, it's nothing meant to scare anybody out here. But this is, Chris, this is the new reality, so to speak. And so people just need to accept this is actually this is reality that every organization out there is facing.
Yeah.
And these practical steps that you went over is how you're going to protect yourself and make it a little less stressful. But it's just a part of doing business in today's world.
Yeah, it really is. If you're starting a new pharmacy or opening another store, I mean, some of the first things that need to be going through your head are, what can I do as I build out this new store or this new pharmacy? What can I do to make it as secure as possible? Because it is like you said, Scotty, it is a reality. We're all going to have to face it at some point, and we just hope we're as protected as we can be at the time that it happens.
So I got one question here, Chris. Please list firewall suggestions again.
Yeah, sure. SonicWall, that's the vendor we use here at Sykes & Company. So I'm kind of biased to that. I'm not sure the size of your network and the amount of users, but most, I would say something in the TZ line or NSA lines of SonicWall firewalls. Those are the ones I'm most familiar with. I know other small and medium business firewalls are, another vendor is WatchGuard. Another one is Fortinet. Those are just to name a few out there.
And just to give y'all, the listeners, a little background, Chris, you've worked with some large organizations securing their IT, so you've got a wide range of skill sets there for different size organizations when it comes to this.
Yeah.
Another question here. Would you recommend encrypted or unencrypted emails for internal, external communication within the company? That's from Jacob.
That's a great question. I guess it depends on who you're using for email. If you're using Office 365 for email, we're using that here, and you're just sending emails to another staff member, I would say unencrypted is fine, especially if you don't have confidential PII type of data in those emails. I think unencrypted is fine. However, if you are sending attachments that are confidential, or if you have patient account numbers or whatever it might be, definitely those need to be encrypted. On a side note, we use a service called ShareFile, which is an online file sharing service that we use to send all of our attachments encrypted. So that's something else you could look into for sending emails encrypted. They also offer an Outlook plugin that encrypts your emails within Outlook. And that's called ShareFile. Very useful tool. But definitely, if you are concerned about your emails and what you're sending, I would definitely say get them encrypted. Plenty of tools out there to do that, and ShareFile is one of them.
Yes, we use ShareFile, and very user-friendly as well there.
Yeah.
Looks like we don't have any more questions here. If you need to, if you have a follow-up question, feel free to reach out to us. Ask Sykes at sykes-cpa.com, or you see Chris's email up here on the top of your screen. He'll be happy to help any way he can as well. But we certainly appreciate, Chris, all you do for Sykes and Company and keeping us running. I know it's a lot of work with about 45, 50 folks we have here. So, but we certainly appreciate all you do. And again, thanks everyone for joining in today. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions. We hope everyone has a great Christmas holiday season and a great new year. And we'll be seeing you guys next year with the lineup of Master the Margin series. And again, everyone stay safe and have a great Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Thank you, everybody. Merry Christmas.